All right. It is 5:30. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And if we could please start by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Just this here. Do you want to share the purpose of the meeting is for the board to conduct board business. Meeting is open to the public and is recorded. And you can listen to all past board meetings by visiting board docs through the district website. This meeting is being presented via Zoom. It is not appropriate for audience members to interrupt board business or ask questions during the meeting. Agenda items will be listed as listed in the agenda. And in case of emergencies, please exit to using the exit closest to you. And with that, we'll move on to our vision and mission statement. Director Rocco, would you care to share?
Sure. Our vision, our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. Our mission is in connection with our community. The Sequim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so each student thrives.
Thank you. And Director Jeffries, would you care to share our land acknowledgement?
Sure. The Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the S'Klallam people. While the S'Klallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of three sovereign S'Klallam tribal governments. Lower Elwha S'Klallam tribe located in Port Angeles, Jamestown S'Klallam tribe located in Sequim, Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Today, the tribe and district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as a holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journeys.
Thank you so much. With that, that's going to bring us to approval of minutes, agenda, and consent agenda. Is there any objection to the approval of minutes from November 20th? Minutes from the previous meeting, which was
November 6th.
November 6th. And then, thank you. And then agenda and consent agenda. Any objection to the approval of that? Hearing none, we'll consider those approved. And that's going to bring us to public comment. And you have two methods of public comment. Public comment can be done live in person, and it can also be done virtually through Zoom. If you are here for public comment and you are attending the meeting virtually, please use the raise hand icon down at the lower portion of your screen. And that way we will go ahead and capture your name and put you in the queue for public comment. So go ahead and please do that now. Now look at the folks here that are attending in person. We have Sarah Lane.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Lynn Kozernick, and I wear a lot of hats here. I am a citizen of Sequim School District. I'm also a teacher and the SEA president. And I have two comments I want to make today. First, I wanted to let you all know that I was really pleased to see that the district is exploring transition to kindergarten. I'm very excited to see that we're not going to leave that money on the table, and that hopefully that program is something that can help our youngest students learn the procedural skills they need to succeed and do well in our primary schools. And second, I wanted to come and share an experience I had in my classroom this week. I teach the civics classes. So I have seniors, and last week we had a mock legislature in my class. One of the mock bills that was proposed had to do with accessibility of our facilities. And it was proposed by a student who has a cousin who has accessibility issues. And he shared that his cousin has not attended a function in our gymnasium because he cannot get onto the bleachers without handrails. And so I decided I'd bring that to you all to explore. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's something you can look into for us. Yeah, okay, great, thank you. All right, do we have anybody virtually that, just curious, okay. We have one more public comment. I have realized that I did not read the entire guidelines for that, but I think, Alyssa, you're next, and I'm guessing that you've heard all the parameters for public comment before, so maybe we can just skip it. Okay.
So first I want to start off by saying thank you, Superintendent Nichols. At the last board meeting, you addressed a lot of or some of the concerns that have been raised again and again, and that was really appreciated. So I just wanted to say thank you. Today, while I was volunteering at Helen Haller, the fourth grade boys were told that they cannot use the toilet in their pod. But instead they have to go out across the courtyard if they need to use a toilet. The reason for this is because the ceiling tiles in the bathroom have been sagging for quite a while now. And they discovered that the water heater in the attic space was leaking into the bathroom. So my reason for bringing this up is because at the November 6th meeting 2 weeks ago, the board approved a contract for roughly $500,000 to remodel the district office. A part of the building that was not being utilized when I was in school here 21 years ago and has since been remodeled in the last 15 years. There are so many facility issues that have a daily impact on our students and teachers, yet the priority seems to be remodels that have little to no impact on students. And I would just love to better understand how those priorities are being justified. I don't know if maybe there is some kind of parent or family advisory group. I haven't heard about anything happening this year in relation to that, or just something where parents can raise questions or give input as to how those things work. So that's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and that's going to close the public comment portion of the meeting. Appreciate the public comments and captured notes on both of those. Thank you very much. All right, that's going to bring us to our student board representative report.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's doing good. We had our WSSDA annual conference this past weekend. Desire and I were extremely grateful for the opportunity. We had an amazing time. We attended a few sessions, and it was a great opportunity to hear some very inspirational speakers and to do some personal learning.
Great. All right, thank you. All right, and next we have our reports to the board. And we're going to start with fall sports report, I believe. Hello?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
I'm Craig Brooks. I'm the athletic director here at Sequim High School, and I've got the fall sports. So there's slides there on the screen for the Zoom. But I'm here to just talk about a really successful fall season. Overall, in general, our participation numbers are up, and yeah, it was really good to see a lot of success on the soccer field and on the tennis courts and just all of our fall sports. So it was a really positive environment this fall. So each sport by sport, volleyball came pretty close to state. So you can see the bullet points there, but it's one of our biggest turnouts is for our volleyball teams. We always get a lot of students wanting to come out, which is awesome. And Coach Jenny does a great job. And they were one game away from making it to state, and they lost in the 5th set. It was a close one, and so had they taken care of some damage there in the 5th set, they would have gone to state, but close, but no cigar there. All right, next. And then the football report. Football had a rough season, and numbers have been down, and that's the one that team has probably felt the biggest effects still from COVID and turnout and different things. But the numbers were lower there, but they did get a couple wins here, one at Kingston. And so it was a good year, good season for them. I know a lot of the boys had fun. A really small senior class was free. And so it's tough to, when the physical nature of the game really requires older, more physically developed players. So they had a lot of success given their small size and stature. And then cross country had another great year and sent a few participants to state as well. I know they performed well when they were over there in Eastern Washington. And Paul Brinkman, BJ Shea, and Tracy Pride did a great job there, as well as a few other volunteers. 26 participants, and they all enjoyed themselves, and nothing but positivity from the cross country members. Every time I talk to them about how it's going, they like it, and they're just enjoying themselves. So it was a really good sport there for the fall. Next. And girls swimming has some success as well. I put some of the details up there by name, but overall, another successful year. We had a new swim coach this year, Sharice Feather and Sarah Thorson. They kind of co-coached the girls there, and were just really great. Really great. And Sarah's coached here previously as well, but they did a great job with the girls, and the girls responded positively to their coaching, and it was a really good season for the girls swim team. And then girls soccer. Girls soccer did qualify for state, coached by Ken Garling and Dave Breckenridge there, and a few other assistants. Their participation was down, so they only had a varsity team. We couldn't field the JV team, which we tried to or struggled to do last year, but hopefully this continued success will lead to more success. And they lost to Richfield in the first round of state, and Richfield wound up winning it all. So there was no disappointment to lose to the state champs, but had a great season, fought their way through district playoffs and qualified for state. So they did really well. And then boys tennis, the team record was 5-8, but the individuals did very well. And tennis, the state competition is in the spring. So we do have Garrett Little, who qualified for state, and he'll compete this spring along the same time with the girls state tennis. But multiple doubles teams made it into the district tournament. A lot of success throughout the season, and really a lot of young athletes came out for tennis this year and really grew and developed. And so you could see their progress from the beginning of the season to the end. It was kind of night and day there. So great job with the new tennis recruits there. Okay, and that's the fall sports report. If there's anything else, any questions?
Any questions, Mark?
I would just observe, it's really nice to see that in almost every case, the students remained academically eligible throughout the season. And for me, no matter how they do on the field, that's a big win.
Absolutely, almost to 100% across all sports. It was really good, and that's been an emphasis for us. And the coaches, I think, have also responded positively to me requesting that, or kind of asking them to go above and beyond the WIA standards for passing. They have to be passing 5 or 6, but a lot of coaches have taken that to where they have to be passing all classes, and holding them to a little higher standard academically. And so that's been really successful through the fall, and we're going to continue to do that with the winter. I know for the boys basketball program, I've asked, and with the seniors, I kind of posed it to them, but my senior group of leaders for boys basketball specifically now is to have them show me their grades every Wednesday. And so they're reporting those to the coaches rather than the other way around, and we're finding out who's failing. They're coming to us and saying, and this is what the sports are doing as well as an example. So they're on top of their grades. So that's been good.
Great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Larry.
Yeah, that sound like Garrett in tennis. How does he keep in shape, keep his skills over that long wait till this?
He's playing for me on the court. No. He's also one of our
So
varsity basketball players. Yeah.
Using
He's a tough kid.
basketball to stay in shape.
Yeah, it's a little different shape, as he found out last week once basketball started. But yeah, he also competes indoors, either down in Silverdale or Bremerton and stuff, and finds time to stay sharp. But yeah, it's a tough one to play, and he's got to wait not only till spring, but the end of spring when the state tournament starts. So that's always a challenge with the alternate season there.
Is that a consideration for weather, temperature? This
Weather
time of
and
year?
availability, right? We run boys and girls separately. So really the state season is boys and girls both in the spring. So we have the boys in the alternate season in the fall here in our league at the Olympic League because of the facilities, and a lot of leagues around the state do that.
Anything else? Well, please, on behalf of the board, please pass along our appreciation to all the coaches, if you don't mind.
Okay, will do.
And yeah, job well done over the fall season. So,
Okay. All
All
right.
right.
Thank you, guys.
thank you. All right, that's going to bring us to our capital projects report. With, we have both Chris and Mike presenting on this. Okay,
Yes, we did.
all right. Hi,
Good
Chris.
afternoon. This evening, I actually had a topic I wanted to talk about, but I actually, interestingly enough, it plays into some of the public comment that happened today. I wrote down a note about the bleachers and the ceiling tiles and the water heater dripping and the bathrooms not being used. And one of the things that is a topic that me and Mike have been talking about, along with Superintendent Nichols, is the fact of really defining the needs of these facilities and how it's changed or evolving as we go through both the capital projects levy and as these facilities continue to age. The topic of tonight that I was going to bring forward today is the fact that we are going to be implementing a more formal process to really finalize some of these projects and put them in front of the board, as well as put them up for resolution in selection, especially where there is an emergent need or a change of necessity as we start really going and looking at what is the best return on investment for the remaining funds in the capital levy moving here through the next couple of years. One item of note was the conversations in regards to having projects selected. We've had some of the projects that have been selected to date have been based on funding sources that were allocated and dedicated specific to them, and other ones are based on needs and information that maybe it appears we need to be a little bit more forthcoming or holistic in our approach in presenting the information. So, for example, in September, we had a conversation about really there's a large pool of funds really set aside for the capital projects levy, and we've just gone through finalizing our process for the design efforts for the high school HVAC systems. And one of the concerns or risks that we had was that the largest project within the levy, it had the largest largest risk of escalations, material costs, delays, and everything else of the sort. And based on the engineer's estimates with the efforts that we've gone through to try to streamline how this project could be approached, we're coming in right around exactly where we expected to be 2 years ago, which is a very positive sign. It's a sign that efforts are paying attention to, and we're trying to be as aware of cost impacts while trying to bring these projects to a close and into fruition as possible to provide best services to the facility. And coming here in the next couple of months, I'm going to be presenting a little bit more detailed reports. Me and Mike have been talking about a couple, and he'll be touching on some. It's his part of it in regards to what projects are going to be coming forward. However, one thing I would like to bring to attention is that we are now looking specifically at talking about toilets. We're looking at sewers. And one of the things that we had spoken about before is what are the needs and demands of sewers on these projects? Will they actually be forwarding the first resolutions come December, the meeting in December 4th, for the board to review and actually take a look at these projects in a much more depth. And I hope with that, in that process, we start to develop a means for this type of feedback to come back, and maybe we take a re-envision what these levy dollars go to and what projects we pursue.
Okay. Thank you.
The specific projects I'm going to leave to Mike. He had it all covered for today.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions for Chris? All right. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. So Chris mentioned some of the items that we're going to bring to you in the next board meeting. I'll give you a primer. We've got Gray Wolf Elementary's septic refresh project. It's a project that needs to be done in order to get us all the way to the point where we can seriously consider hooking Gray Wolf up to sanitary sewer. So there needs to be a refresh project in the middle in order to get us there. Make sure we keep that facility open and safe for our students. In addition to that, there's the Helen Holler lift station vault relocation. That's another one we'll bring to you. Basis of the project is the vault that currently exists today, the school was actually built around it during one of its expansions. The access hole cover is 18 inches, which is not wide enough legally to get a person in. And inside that vault is the lift pump and a 4 by 6 by 12 foot deep box, concrete box that a person would have to get into to service that area. So it needs to be moved and relocated, resized, so we're within confined, OSHA confined space requirements. So we can begin to service that unit again. I'm going to cover the following tonight: projects and process. Chris did mention the office remodel boardroom. That will start the first week of December. Got some of the coordination efforts we need to make with the superintendent and her staff, but we're well on our way to beginning that project. The OPA clocks installation, that is on the books. The Sequim School District maintenance staff is actually installing that OPA. Okay, so we've taken that out of a contractor's hands, programmed that into our night work, and we're doing that currently. The CTE air compressor replacement for the auto and wood shops, the compressor's ordered. It's about a 4 to 6 week lead. The Sequim School District Maintenance Department will install it with permitted electrical done by others. Anticipated start of the installation, we hope and anticipate it'll be over Christmas break. We'll be able to commission it, put it back into service. And the wood shops and the auto shops will have their new compressor to greet them in the new semester. Projects on the street currently, Sequim High School HVAC project. Chris mentioned that in his presentation. Currently the largest project on the levy list. It's a significant number of units. It's all the HVAC units, all the exhaust units. There's modifications happening in this facility that we're in here, stratification fans, closing off that mezzanine up there to create a better and more efficient space. So it's a very, very, very extensive project, and it will probably go on, depending on how it's sequenced and assuming that the equipment arrives on time, which we anticipate that it will in conversation with the manufacturer. It will go for probably 4 to 6 months. With that fact, we will have to do some of the work during the school year. So we are currently working with the campus staff, with the superintendent and other stakeholders on the campus to ensure that we can perform that construction safely and efficiently without running over on change orders and running over time. So stay tuned, more to come on that. The Helen Holler, excuse me, fire protection system replacement. Request for design is on the street. You all recall that was a project that was paused late, I think, second quarter. Is that correct? Of this year, I believe. The construction RFP is anticipated to go on the street in January. So again, prioritizing the protection of life and property, we've resurrected that and we're moving it forward as fast as we can to replace that control unit. Projects on the horizon. District-wide building management system replacements. Our building management system, just in short, it's what it runs the thermostats. It's what controls the air. It's what controls the exhaust. It's got the setbacks for the nighttime. It's the brains of the HVAC. I'll just put it to you that way. It's also the brains of the hot water and other systems. It's got interlocks with the fire system and so on. Across the district, 96% of it was obsolete 20 years ago. It is now fully unmaintainable. As early as 5 or 6 years ago, my predecessor and his colleagues in maintenance were buying control cards off of eBay to keep it rolling and keep it running. We're more or less out of time. So we are accelerating that project immediately, and we will spec a manufacturer in a particular unit type that is appropriate for the district before the end of the year. We hope to have that RFP on the street in January, because we need that project to immediately follow units that are installed here at the high school, HVAC units that are installed here at the high school. we don't have a lot of confidence that the existing PMS here, when we disconnect it from the units on the roof, is going to reconnect back to the new units and communicate with it. So we're fast tracking the BMS work. You'll see that coming in the very near future. And finally, the 3-tab roof replacement for campus and the portables. Our intention is to bifurcate that a little bit. In other words, take the high work that's got high angles of approach on the roofs, which typically brings a premium from roofers, and bifurcate that from portables, which is lower to the groundwork. The slopes are not as steep. And furthermore, we intend on not using as premium of a product on the portables. Reason being, quite frankly, we believe that the portables will not outlast the shingles. So in the process of master planning into the future, we're obviously looking at how to spend money wisely and spend money in a practical way in the meantime. So watch for that in the near future. Our roofs lose shingles on a regular basis. We're calling roofers on a regular basis. So we know that that's also a priority. That's all I have. Do you have any questions?
How long the shingles, how long they're rated for that are going to be
There-
going on this board?
There's probably 3 or 4 different classes on the market.
Okay.
The classes go from longevity to impact resistance.
Okay.
So your class 4 shingle at the very top end of the scale will take 1.5 inches hailstone and it's a 50-year shingle. It'll also take 120-mile-an-hour wind if it's installed correctly. And then on the bottom end of the spectrum, you have the same type of asphalt shingles, just not as thick. It's just not as robust. It doesn't have a fiberglass back. And it's typically somewhere between a 10 and 20-year shingle.
Mhm.
But the cost differential is remarkable. So it's not 5 times, but it's pretty close to 3 times the cost when we go from what I would call the economical shingle that keeps water out just fine.
Sure.
But it won't go 20 years and the class 4 shingle.
Question?
Yes, sir.
We heard a little bit tonight about the leaking water heater at Helen Haller in the
Yes.
boys' restroom. I know those emergent things come up. How do you see handling that situation, or?
At that particular site, we discovered that this morning. The sagging ceiling, if you will, was shown to me last Friday. So my personnel were dispatched this morning to investigate why the ceiling might be sagging without signs of leaking. So the false ceiling showed no water stains. So we didn't really know why it had delaminated itself from the plywood. We found out soon enough that the plywood had slow soaked, delaminated the false ceiling, if you will, the tiles. We know that there are unfriendly elements in that building design. We certainly don't want to cut into it. But to answer your question directly, there is a local plumbing company coming out tomorrow morning with a replacement water heater, and it will be replaced tomorrow. Does that answer your
Yeah.
question, Mr.?
Good, thank you.
Mr. Lee? Thank you.
Other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for the
Thank
thorough
you.
report.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's going to bring us to our finance and enrollment report.
All right, good evening.
Hello.
Tonight I have 2 presentations. First, I'll cover our October budget status reports. And go straight to our fund balance report. So these are our numbers ending October 31st, and these numbers are not estimates any longer. So our F-196 for year and close of 22-23 was accepted by OSPI on Friday afternoon. So these are current numbers going forward. So you can see in our general fund, our beginning fund balance is 2,279,941. And after revenues and expenditures, we are at $2,555,095. Capital projects, starting our year at $3,285,410, and we have some expenditures, and then revenues. You can see quite a few revenues coming in because it's our levy or capital projects levy dollars and our local levy dollars that have come into both general fund and capital projects. But so ending with $4,382,252 ending fund balance. Debt service fund, it's just accumulating interest at this time. So our ending fund balance is $73,843.40. And then our ASB fund, ending at $502,837.05. And transportation vehicle fund, you can see our beginning fund balance is a little bit higher because in the end of August, we get our depreciation payment on our vehicles that are in our fleet. And so our beginning fund balance is $1,555,982. And once interest has been added for the month of October, we're at $1,568,188. All right, and then to go to our general fund activity report. Different way of looking at our numbers. In the blue column, that is actual numbers for October of 2022, and I should have labeled it as such. But you can see that it's just broken down, how our revenues are broken down, actual for October, and same with our expenditures. You can then see our local levy dollars, 2,174,710. As most of that is local levy dollars. All right, and then the third report for October is our general fund expense summary. And then this is just broken out in different ways so that you can see salaries, benefits, supplies, materials, travel, capital outlay, and purchase services. And so broken out in another way. Any questions about October budget status reports? Okay, well, let's move into our 2022-23 fiscal year end review. And since this was sent to you on Friday evening, it has been modified. And so as we go through the slides, you'll see that where the modification is and the reason for that. So I'm able to say, I wish I would have been able to change the date. It's all been approved and complete through OSPI, but it really is just the slides that we're showing are just a snapshot of we started our school year and where we ended up at the end of our school year and moving forward. So as you know, we have 5 fund accounts and they all have a specific purpose. And so as we're taking in revenues and having our expenditures go out, we have to be mindful about which accounts we're using. So our general fund is just the general use for our day-to-day operations and is for everything except for what the other 4 funds specifically are used for. So capital projects fund, right now we are using it for improvements to our buildings and grounds, remodeling of buildings, replacement of flooring, service systems, those things. It can be, it's the fund is used for all those things have to do with construction and remodel of our school campuses. Debt service fund, that is for the payment of long-term debt as per principal and interest, and sometimes capital projects or general fund have to add their part, but it all goes through capital projects and then debt service fund, and that's how we pay for any bond that we would have out there. Our ASB fund is our student led funds, and they support all kinds of student led activities such as sports and class events and clubs. and the students earn the revenue or our community donates to those clubs or classes. And the funds are all student-led, so that's student council, and they build the budgets and they approve everything that is an expenditure when it comes to us. They've done all of the meetings and everything is run through student council. Our transportation vehicle fund is only used for the purchase and major repair of our buses. And right now we have 2 buses, I think, coming maybe December-ish. Right? Oh, we have 4 of them. So we're able to like fast track because it was taking so long to get buses, and as they drop off the depreciation schedule, if we don't have a bus to replace it to put onto the schedule, we're not earning that depreciation that helps us replace the bus when down the road we need to replace that bus. So I know Don's been working on that quite quickly to get us caught up. All right, those are our 5 funds. Any questions about the 5 funds? Talk about those a lot. All right. So 2022-23, the enrollment grid is the enrollment grid that you guys see every single month. And this is every single month all on there. The yellow is what was budgeted. And then as we go through each month, that is what enrollment was for 22-23. And enrollment is for this report based on FTE, not head count. And the reason being that FTE is that that's how we're funded through the state. We receive funding based on FTE, and we have head count that's further down on one of these reports, but we don't use that to send to the state to claim for funds. So that's why you see FTE down here. And then you'll see there's a line, and this is where the modification of the next slide is that you can see that we also budget not the next one, Running Start FTEs. And so you can see that we do receive funds for Running Start, but it's like a pass through. You know, they go to their classes at college, and then we receive invoices from the different schools, and then we turn around and pay those invoices. And so the dollars that we are receiving through apportionment for Running Start go back to the colleges. All right. This is just like the budget status report that you see for each month, and this is the year end. This is August of 2023 for the actual numbers for 22-23 year end. And so you can see the bottom numbers. Ending fund balances become our beginning fund balances for September 1 of 2023. And that's where we go from. So this is the slide that has been modified, and so the historical data on the general fund ending fund balance comparison, that is not modified. Those numbers are correct. I turned them around so it starts with 18-19 and down to 22-23 for our ending fund balance. And but the part that has really been modified is the enrollment history. And what has been modified is that pre-COVID, when we were looking at enrollment, we aren't looking at that graph like we just saw a couple slides ago. It was actually like a line graph, and it just showed each month, and then we had a graph down below it, and it was the year before. And so we kept track of our FTE by building on that graph, and that was how you guys followed enrollment. And then as we went into COVID, and it's such a drop of enrollment that we started using a spreadsheet. And on the spreadsheet, of course, my Running Start totals are on there. So the difference between the numbers was that it did not include Running Start numbers in the line graph from prior years, but did in the most recent year. So went back and I added the Running Start FTE to each year, starting in 18-19, so that you could see the comparison is the same across the year. So 18-19 up to October of 23-24, able to put that on there. It includes all BEA, FTE, as well as ALE and a running start. And so running start was the difference. So, and if you look at the OSPI's, they have numbers on there, like under their, I don't know what it is, grade, their annual grade book or, whatever, I can't remember what it's called. Is that what it is? They use head count and they include preschool. And so our preschool program, while they do count preschoolers, they count that through special ed enrollment count. And they are funded through special ed funding, but not BEA funding. And so you won't see preschoolers added into this enrollment count because it's not what we're looking at for funding for BEA. Any questions on that? Seems how I did change that and modified it, and then I sent it out to you so you could look at it. Okay. This is just our timeline moving along into this school year, and I broke it down just a few months at a time. And because really when we start the school year, it's a little much because we're still dealing with 2 school years. And so we're trying to start our new school year, but we're still trying to balance and do a lot of entries for the prior year. And so in doing all that, the F196, of course, is very important. It's got a deadline to be to the ESD by November 8th with all your errors corrected. And they immediately send it to OSPI and it's approved. And so we were waiting right down to the last for them to approve it. And then along with that, then there are a couple other reports that I have to have complete. The auditors already asked for all of our files. We send those electronically. And so we have until December 5th or something it's an upload, as we do it every year. And that's how they start and prepare so that they're not spending time charging us extra dollars when so they can be prepared ahead of time, for traveling and staying as it costly. So they try to minimize that by having everything up front, asking for things that can be sent electronically to them before they travel out to our districts. And then our CFA is a schedule of federal funds that come to us, and it is a report that is due to the state auditor's office. It's due by the end of this month, and it's quite complex. And usually when the auditors come, then they'll go over it with us so that if we need to make any changes, we are allowed to do that. Because it is complex and they want it to be correct, because it's posted on the state auditor's webpage. Along with every other district that receives federal funds. January through March, well, and even in December, we're going to start our budget process all over again. And so looking at the human resources, we'll be looking at building their part of the budget. They start going to the ESD for training in January, and then the fiscal trainings are in February, but even before then, starting to build the budget because it just takes that long and it changes. And so we just, depending on what happens with our staffing, with negotiations with our different associations, a lot of factors. And so start to build that shell, and then we can work inside that. But human resources and payroll, they will work together and get everybody's contract all kind of imported over. And that's the first step for salary and benefits. And then state auditors, they will probably be at our door in January. They usually, I've had them come the day that we come back from winter break. So I don't know this year when that will be, but it will probably be January, February is usually what they try for, because they have a deadline to have their audit completed by the May 31st, and that's a law. And then we also, let's see, moving down to April and May, all those required dates for the May 15th deadline for certificated staffing. And then we also have our child nutrition services, and we've already been scheduled to have them come, and it will be in April, and they'll come and they'll do an audit of our program. And so because we're in a CEP and Provision 2 combined program, we do family income surveys and we don't have the free and reduced application any longer. So they will just be looking through all that, making sure that we are reporting exactly what our free and reduced numbers are. A lot of it comes direct cert, but then we do end up with the applications and we put them in manually. And then June through August, that's just the budget refinement and meeting all the deadlines for presenting to the board, and our final budget is due by August 31st. There's our whole year mapped out right there. And I'm not sure, on our web page, we're actually working on updating our web page on our district site. And I don't know if you've met any of our team, but this is our business office team. This is Haley and Kathy, our two payroll HR specialists, and Betsy is our fiscal specialist. And so we don't have any pictures on our business office part of the web page. So maybe we put those on there. All right. And so any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. One question, I was thinking when you were talking about the timeline, although this seems way too early to think about now, but as I was thinking, you were talking about January through March starts the new budgeting process, and then even April and May, you start to look at required staff recommendations. I imagine part of that, as you try to see where the student counts are going at what levels, is there ever an effort to coordinate that with, of course, HR and teaching and learning to see, like, maybe there are folks that want to do voluntary transfers. Maybe there's somebody at the high school level that does have a certificate that's, maybe they're ready for switching and they want to go back to elementary or vice versa. And
yeah, I think all those things are talked about. There's a lot of meeting that happens, and if there, I would hope that if there is a staff member out there that really is thinking that they want to be in a different spot, that they're talking to their building administrator and kind of just passing that on. And but yes, there's a lot of communication, a lot of just seeing who is where in what buildings, and where even the grant funding is at title and lap, and where those things fall, and how where can people be placed. So it's quite a I think detailed process, and it takes quite a while, and that's why we start in December and January. And then we use the F203, which is that reporting tool through OSPI that we can put in enrollment numbers, and we can do that tool as many times as we need to do it. So if we start with looking at our enrollment and kind of what it looks like, and you get to January and you can start to see historically like a little bit of decline, and we just can keep track of that, and we can just keep doing a modification to the F203, or even several different scenarios of the F203. And that gives you your funding sources, and it tells you what staffing is needed based on the enrollment numbers and in which grades.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but we can do that as many times as we need to. And then while we're waiting for the F203, that will be for the 23, 24, looking forward to the new year, we can use the one that we already have that we used for this budget. And then we just keep watching for things to change on the John Jeanette sheet. When they update things, percentages and things, we can actually go in there and manipulate the tool to update the information that we know to get even closer. And then when the new one comes, we just migrate all of our information over to that and then start using that one.
All right. Great. Other questions?
Two things. First, you kind of briefly went over it. The role ESD plays in it, our ESD. It sounds like they are there to support us and double check our work before everything goes to OSPI. That works.
It's required. And so the ESD, when we build our reports, like the F196, even our budget F195, it has to first go to the ESD, and the fiscal director there has extensive worksheets that she'll go through, and she'll like look at our information, and she'll mark it off of her spreadsheet, or she'll actually do some calculations, and then what she does is then she'll send it back. And then we continue to work on it. And so that's why there's a couple deadlines, and she'll just keep watching to see how close we're getting. And then she'll kick it right back to us so we can start working on it again, so that we have everything corrected. And in the end, they're not gonna say, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna accept this because I don't like it. They're gonna say, okay, if you have an explanation for the auditor as to why looks like this, that's good enough for us, and we can send it to OSPI. And then OSPI will look it over and most likely approve it.
Well-
But they are the main check of things, because all of the districts are required to send them. It won't let you send it directly to OSPI. We do the certification once it's ready, and then the ESD sends it to OSPI.
And there shouldn't be, probably, the ESD wouldn't be surprised by something because they've been kind of watching and working with you all along. I mean, if there's,
They are. And, if you're talking about like, our year end, or how we're building our budget, those things, they're completely watching that. They do get reports, I think, from Jason Rhodes, who oversees the fiscal director. And so I know that he does reports all the time on all of our districts. So, and then I think with the superintendent's meetings, they get information, and they meet once a month, and then so do business managers, and we go to Bremerton and meet once a month. So anything of, if there's anything that they need to talk about, they're talking about at those meetings, so there's no surprise.
I have a second one unless there's somebody that has a first one they want to ask her.
Go ahead.
It's my usual question. Can you guess what it is?
Our ending fund balance percentage for minimum fund balance. Well, I figured it out today, and you won't like it. It's like 3.5%, and that's $1.6 million. And that's what's sitting there right now. And that leaves less than $200,000 just as like fund balance. It doesn't leave much because our ending fund balance is only $2.2 million.
I think our policy calls for what, 4 to 6.
Yep.
Which I
stretching
think
for
is
4 to
too low.
6. If I
but-
knew how to get it there, I would, but yes.
So I'm not predicting anything's gonna come up, but that's there for, that money that's there, no matter how small it is for,
It's for just the day-to-day operations of our district. Is that what you're looking for? Payroll, all of our monthly utilities, everything that the buildings are ordering that they need for their students in their classrooms. Mostly,
Darlene, I'll share that the paycheck to the school district is from OSPI apportionment, and it does not come in even installments. It has some significant swings. And when we did some figuring for year end, the swing from October last year until June 30th, 1.8 million. So we have to have 2 million just to make sure we can cover the swing for when we are paying out our monthly payroll. And we haven't gotten the high apportionments because it doesn't come on a monthly basis like we pay. So fund balance is incredibly important, not just for that coverage, but also for looking for the future. So we're going to be talking a lot about how we can move forward on that.
yeah, because
Yeah.
that fund balance also determines what our credit rating, if we should, our credit rating. Is that
It
correct?
does impact bond rating.
Yes.
so I think that, as we move forward, we're just really diligently watching some of the expenditures that happen every year that we don't know are going to happen. So one of them would be just the increased costs of salary and benefit for substitute teachers and substitute paras and substitute, custodians, the substitutes across the board last year far exceeded. So then we try to, foresee and budget a little bit more, but we don't get funding for that. We get very little funding if you look at apportionment for substitutes. And we don't get substitute reimbursement from OSPI for classified staff, just certificated.
But basically, emergencies, like water heaters that are leaking is one kind of emergency, but the other kind of emergency is making sure we had the funds to pay salaries. I know.
Yeah.
Before I was on the board, there was a particularly long session where they had to go into they went long, special session, they wouldn't pass the budget. And I know our district was worried, do we have the money? If the state can't get their act together, do we have the money to pay the salaries? And
right.
we had maybe a month's supply and that's about it.
We did because, back then, because it was, I don't know if I was here in closing, we didn't get part of our apportionment. We had to wait. And so, yeah, it makes it very difficult and we don't want to be in a situation where we cannot cover people.
Well, I think, hopefully we can get it to 4 to 6% like our policy calls for. And I'm still in favor of increasing the policy to 6 to 8%, higher, because ours is pretty low to begin with.
That's true.
In a crisis though, do we have the ability to borrow from other funds temporarily and then pay those funds back?
You can do an interfund loan. There's some requirements to it, but yes.
I'm just saying
Depending
if
on
push
which
came to
fund.
shove.
If
is
push
what-
came to shove, and then I also believe that our treasurer, our Clown County treasurer would also be there to support us too. But yes, we do have the capability. Looking through the accounting manual, you can decide which funds you can do an interfund loan from. So you cannot ever do an interfund loan from ASP, of course,
Right.
because it's student funds.
Right.
But I don't know, maybe in some districts that's their biggest fund, but you cannot touch that fund.
Yeah.
But yes, you can.
Anything else? All right,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's going to bring us to our superintendent report.
First of all, I'd like to report on legislative visit on the 13th of November. I would like to thank Representative Theringer and also Representative Chapman for coming. And we did have a representative also come from Vanderway's office to represent. So that was a very good discussion. We were able to talk about funding issues, special education issues, concerns that are present in our school district and beyond around student behavior and how we are working within the legislative systems that schools are expected to with discipline, for instance, and protocols for how to manage students. We also got them out of the building and around the campus, and they were able to speak directly with teachers and talk about what the teachers that they encountered would like for science lab improvements, because we do have science labs from a different generation, we'll say.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah.
Grandfather.
We also were able to have them then experience a student experience, and we had Representative Chapman come to the student advisory group with the superintendent and talk to some students. And then we had Representative Theringer go to a CTE awards ceremony where students received certificates for their work out in the field as technicians and automotive. So I think it was a very good visit. And what I would like to report that I found most valuable about it as well is not just the sharing in one direction. We did receive some recommendations from the representatives about how we could be more effective at advocacy. And we do have Day in the Hill coming up in January. And really it was a conversation around partnering with our other institutions and organizations like the Washington State Superintendent's Association, WEA, making sure that we're talking with WSSDA and that we're having platforms that are similar. What do you know this year? SQUIM put forth several aspects for WSSDA. They were accepted. The platforms for WEA and WSSDA do have similarities around items. So I think we're going in the right direction. And I really appreciate their time with us. It was a wonderful conversation. I want to let you know that we have a date and time for a behavior forum. We are going to be having a forum that's dedicated to partnering for student support around behavior management. That will be on December 11th. That is a Monday, and it will be from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Likely it will be right here in this room. Our goals for the forum will be threefold. We'd like to give an opening so that folks understand what the lay of the land is right now in schools with behavior management. Also do some education to folks about what the schools do need to be following for those different procedures, protocols, policies, and RCWs that we're required to utilize. And also a bit about the training that teachers have around behavior management and the experience that so many of our veterans have around systems that absolutely do work for so many of the students, and that we are challenged by with some of the students that we know need to have more development in those areas. So we also will be having an open question opportunity so people can pose their questions, concerns, or asks for more information, and we'll have a panel available to address those. So we will look forward to that opportunity. I want to let you know, speaking of the ESD tonight, Superintendent Aaron Lavelle from the ESD did come and visit on November 8th. We were able to sit and talk about many facets of our district's contract with the ESD. We do contract with them for regional support services. For instance, there are therapists that we may not need to have a full therapist to serve a certain position. We might need partial service, and so we're able to contract for that. If we do need more service, for instance, BCBA, a behavior consultant, behavior analyst, we would be contracting with them, and we presently do. It was a good visit because he was very interested in hearing how SQUIM and schools out on the peninsula might have different needs than schools closer in Kitsap. And one thing I was able to discuss with him at length is interest that the ESD has in supporting a behavior in schools, and how challenging it is for us out here on the peninsula to consider transporting our students all the way to Kitsap County for services when we really need some service here on the peninsula as well. The superintendent visits to the buildings continue. I was able to go to Helen Haller Elementary last week. We talked about a few themes, and at OPA DVS, some similar themes had also popped up. Facilities is coming up around interests of archaic facilities being renovated. What is the future for us thinking about building or refurbishing? Really good questions about that. Phones came up. I will update you that Director Young and I were able to speak with Continuant, the phone company. We're anticipating another phone call coming up either this week or next, and then we will be getting more information to you. The future of buildings, behavior, resources available to schools, the tutoring, aspects about how we are running logistics, all were brought up, and so it was good discussion. I was able to attend the operetta's show of Murder on the Orient Express, and I just wanted to compliment the talented cast and the developers of the set. It was a turntable set this year, and it just was great how quickly they could move from scene to scene, and it was quite a show. So a shout out to our high schoolers. Also attended the Boys and Girls Club auction dinner. It really was a celebration of student success and featured Pearl singing, not once, but 3 times, and she's amazing. We also wanted to commit our partnership to the Boys and Girls Club. We have a solid relationship between the 2 entities, and we definitely want to grow that. So it was a great evening. Today, we had a PLC meeting. It's a late start Monday, and so we did bring our trainer from Solution Tree back, Cheyenne Oliva. She came and checked in with our staff. She did some presentation. We did put out for folks to ask questions, and we'll continue to get feedback about that and carve out opportunities for our staff to talk directly to the trainer to keep that initiative moving forward. Safety and facility meetings both took place in the last several weeks, and our committees are quite active. We're moving a lot of projects through both facilities and safety. And we did have a presentation from the Fire District 3, Clallam County, because they went to a Texas conference and was able to bring back information about how schools and fire and EMS can be partnering differently. So they've presented their ideas. And the good news is that they brought back a recommendation for us to start using the I Love You Guys protocol for safety. And we had already started to implement that last year. So we are in good company with there. We also had a meeting with Washington State University about farm to school opportunities that we could be looking at, because as you remember, we have the school nutrition bid coming up, and we'd like to think how we can take a more holistic approach. And we have some great ideas about school gardens. We have wellness day information, how we can determine eligibility for grants for farm to school opportunities and start building some of those into our schools over the next few years. And the extension service coming out of WSU offers grant support. So we're very excited about that. And speaking about grant support, I do have a virtual meeting coming up this week with a group who does assist districts in writing grants. And we have so many grants that are being floated right now for possibility, from a partnership grant to surface our tennis courts, to safety and security grants, to grants for e-bus infrastructure like chargers as we start looking ahead to what our future will be, to grants for services within the schools to bolster SEL. So we want to make sure that we have the capacity to act on all of those. So we'll be interviewing and seeing what there is to offer. You may have seen the post for transitional kindergarten. We are surveying the community to see if there are indeed 4-year-olds who are not currently already enrolled in Head Start or ECAP programming, or that already have other daycare needs taken care of, that might be interested in a TK program. This is exploratory right now. We need to determine what the interest is. And then once we have captured those families, then we'll start interviewing the families to see what their needs are. And I'll be coming back to you with more information as we collect the insight from those families. I did attend the Fire Chief Finalist Forum for District 3 in Clallam County, and I will say that it was exciting to see them hold a forum and their potential for leadership moving forward. Certainly they'll be updating us about that, but I appreciated that they found that the schools representation was important so that our partnership continues for student safety and response safety. And then I'd like to report that our professional learning day took place back at the very tail end of October. And we did put out a survey to staff about their satisfaction and their recommendations around the day. We did get a 3.7 out of 5 satisfaction rating, which is about 74%. So I think we're moving in the right direction to offer choices at our professional development days, and we'll continue to work with folks to get it closer to 80%. That's what we're going to be aiming for and higher. And then to let you know that Education Committee will take flight in December, on December 11th, prior to our behavior forum at 4 p.m. That concludes my report.
All right, any questions? Appreciate you staying on top of the conversation around phones, because that's obviously a critical aspect that I know we've been working on for a while, so.
It is.
And I think TK, I'll be very interested to see how that turns out, and I think that connects itself also to some of the behavioral challenges that folks are seeing too, so I'm very hopeful, so thank you for staying on top of that as well. Okay. That's gonna bring us to 9.01, WSSDA discussion. Time to recap a little bit. Would like, and I know you've already shared with the student report, but definitely would want you to participate in this conversation as well. But I want to open up the floor to the rest of the board and yeah, key takeaways or thoughts and how it might be beneficial to swim.
I would say the one frustration was so many sessions that I wanted to go to that were at the same time, and I could not divide myself. And so that was a little, that always happens. And I will say in general that, I've been at a lot of conferences in my life, and this is one of the more useful ones, because they had a lot of nuts and bolts kind of sessions that were very helpful in understanding some pretty difficult subjects. So, so in terms of just general reaction to it, I felt like I learned a lot, that I came away with a lot of notes and a lot of resources to look at later to really fill in my information. So one specific thing I did want to think about is I went to the law conference, and we attended a law firm was talking about their suit against social media companies, and we got a certain perspective of that from the talk, but so there's a lot more to be learned, but I wonder if that might be something we might want to investigate in getting involved in. So.
Few things that I appreciated was the I attended 2 different sessions about bonds, construction bonds and capital levies, and so I found those particularly insightful. One was kind of gave a comprehensive picture of how they did the bond in Walla Walla to build a new high school, and just the intentional effort that they made with involving the community every step of the way, and even afterwards. So even after it's approved, it's still a process that is still, you need to be very intentional about as you progress. So I definitely appreciated that. The other one that there's a few, but I also went to supporting LGBTQ students, and I found that very, very insightful, very helpful. So kind of we know we're in compliance with, of course, all the laws, but there's other things that we can take a look at too with policies and making sure that our students are protected. All students are protected, but especially our LGBTQ plus students. The other piece is the conversation with Tim Garshaw and Chris Reichdahl. And many topics covered, but one of the topics particularly that caught my interest was around funding for paraeducators. And those are difficult spots to fill, I think, across the state. I don't think we're necessarily excluded in that, but but what really caught my attention, it was the first time when they talked about, yes, these need to be funded, and it needs to be funded in a way that's reasonable, but also acknowledging that the prototypical model does not accurately capture what's needed on the ground for paraeducators, particularly because you have so many paraeducators that are funded through different revenue streams. And so any adjustments that could get made at the state level they need to consider that the adjustments might have to be much more than just what's covered for the prototypical model. And they're optimistic of what the first step will be, the governor's budget, which will come out, which will be a kind of a starting point. And I'll be very interested to see what comes out with that, especially if it's a short session, but if it has some different changes there, I'll be more optimistic as we start the legislative session. So I just wanted to kind of share that feedback.
Yeah, I also attended the law conference, and I was actually sort of surprised at how much time was spent on the social media litigation. But it's obviously something that's top of mind for a lot of people, and it really reflects a lot of the concerns about how social media is affecting the mental health of students, and how can the schools respond to that? What levers do we have to pull to try to make an impact? And so, as Maren said, I think that's something that we can take a look at. It's in the pretty early stages. And there's factors pro and con that you have to weigh, but it's a very interesting concept of what they're trying to do, which is basically they're trying to hold social media companies accountable for developing their algorithms in a way that basically makes social media addictive to children. So, there's a lot of, it's like, well, if you give your kid a phone, and, are you responsible, or if schools allow phones, are they responsible? And so there's a lot of discussion about that, but the bottom line is what they are trying to do is to say ask the social media companies to be more responsible in the way that they market their services to young people, and in the way that they develop their product so that it's not as harmful to young people. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. I didn't go to the same one that Eric went to, but I did go to one session on providing gender inclusive schools, which was very interesting, and addressed a lot of sort of those the issues that are hot topics in national and local media. And then the last, well, I attended several others, but the one that I thought was really interesting, the last one that I went to, was called are the students learning, and how can we tell? And it was sort of focusing on what happens with PLCs, and how the work in PLCs can translate into sort of more granular looking at how students are doing, how you can devote, targeted attention to particular kids who are having a particular struggle at a particular time, to try to get them up over whatever the problem is that they're having at the moment, to try to get them back on track. And also from a district's perspective, how that information can be reported to the board. And I was very interested, and they gave some sort of samples about how that information is reported more regularly to the board, so that the board can track better the academic progress of students, and the academic effects of the PLCs and some of the other techniques that are being put into place. So I think that's something I hope we can discuss, and maybe in the future, that's something that we can incorporate into our board meeting structure.
Yeah, I went to a couple of workshops, basically on legislative priorities as a leg rep. Pretty much the same. I went to two different ones, some of the same feelings. We got a short session coming up. What we can maybe get accomplished this session, but more importantly, this session to build on it's a short session, so building for the long session that starts next year. And building those relationships. We started that on November 15th when two of our reps and the administrative assistant, our senator, showed up here, and we talked about things, but they also said, maybe just getting together with them and getting to know them better. They did mention, of course, next year's election year, and we have some of our people changing jobs and running for different things. So it's going to be a challenge, but it was interesting. I also attended some WIAA meetings, the Activities Association meetings. I got myself elected to the WSDA's Interscholastic Activities Committee. So I had to kind of go and see, well, let's see what's WIAA, what's on their list. And went to the committee, not really knowing what they did. And one of the things I learned is neither do they. It depending on who you talk to on that committee, they seem to have a different take on what they were supposed to be doing. So that's a work in progress. I didn't attend any of the budgeting, but I did attend a session on the regressive nature of our educational funding in this state and how there's severe inequities that can be shown to affect student achievement, so on, and we're just not doing a very good job at it. I think it's fairly acknowledged that the prototypical model isn't doing what we'd like it to do, and there needs to be some improvement, and there's only a bucket of money, and everybody's going for that same bucket of money. So part of legislatively is protecting that bucket of money from other people that want to take pieces of it. So, because everybody, I mean, there are a lot of good ideas and needs out there, and we have a bucket of money. So that's something to think about. In our mission statement, we talk about includes official consultation on programs and funding changes with the tribe. I attend.
You mean our land acknowledgement?
In the land acknowledgement, not the mission. Yeah. I think I attended the tribal consultation over in Port Angeles and watched that process and was very impressed with it. I think we can do a lot more here. We don't have the percentages, nor do we get the impact funding where we rise to the level of being required to do it, I think, the way I understand it. But I think it's a very good idea. So I attended a workshop put on by the Wapato School District, which is in the middle of the Yakima Nation. And over the years, they developed their matrices to follow the children and the Native American children in that particular district. And they've expanded that so they can track all demographic groups. And I looked at that and I said, well, you know, we started to do that. We heard some of it in Donna's presentation here not too long ago, but maybe we can reemphasize that and explore what further consultation we can have with our tribe and feedback back and forth. That I think it needs to be enhanced after what I heard there. And then serendipitously, I thought of Mike during this. I happened to sit next to a guy that I thought was on the Interscholastic Athletics Committee. Turned out he was just sitting at that table to eat breakfast. Started talking to him, and he was a vendor that was giving a workshop that I attended on design build and what that meant, and basically getting the contractor or the designers involved early and often in the process, instead of the old model of we have meetings and we decide what we want, then we hire an architect to do what, and then we hire a contractor, and then you get to the end and you find out you're $50 million short. But it's a process where you start early and you work with an expert team all the way along. And I think that's something we ought to explore as we move forward. And it was kind of serendipitous, and he was very good. So I found that to be wasn't on what I said I was going to go to, but I found that very good. And I agree with Lauren. It was a very good conference. I've been to 4 of them. That we had one year where everything was discombobulated because of COVID, but this was a pretty good one. Or I'm further along in my being a school board member that I understood more of what I was hearing. But it was a good conference.
Yeah. Director Roca?
Yes, again, I agree with you all. It was an excellent conference, and I think it's quite necessary, especially as a new board member, to get that basic education so you understand what we're talking about, looking about here. I think it's each year I can see it just growing, so it is a necessary thing. One of the things that I had a big takeaway was that the behavior issues that we've been discussing here it's the same, other districts were saying the same thing. And it's interesting that it's happening with the younger age group. You know, it's not just the high school, middle school like we thought. They're finding it in their elementary schools also going up. And a lot of it they believe was due to the isolation and restraint policies that have come out from the state legislature, and that the state legislators are looking at trying to maybe soften that language up a little bit to give more leeway to the educators dealing with challenging situations. The other thing was, we mentioned grants and grant writing. At the question and answer with Tim there, he actually suggested that everyone would be amazed if they tried Chat GPT to write a grant directed to your website. He goes, 80% of it will be done by Chat GPT. He's like, you still gotta fill in the blanks here and there, but he was saying, you know, he did a test where he pointed it to the district website, said, here's all of our information, here's the grant we want, write it. And he said about 80% of it was filled in by Chat GPT. So something to consider when we're looking at being, you know, our little budget, what should we afford? That might be some ways to take some of that expense off. So again, I haven't done it, but he said he thought it was successful in the way that he was looking at it.
So you're saying we should embrace AI at every
It's coming
step.
either way. We might as well figure out how it can help us. And then finally, I just, on an issue that was close to me, was the driver's education. I did make a good contact with a school board director from Walla Walla also that does have driver's education. And I asked them how far they were in the process of getting that approved. And they said, well, we have it. We've had it for 2 years. I had an email from Western Washington University or something, Central Washington University, saying, oh, we're still planning and discussion phases. So basically telling me this is going to be way out before you're going to be able to do driver's ed. But getting that information and talking to some of the state legislators that I've talked to, they're concerned with the fact that we don't have access to accredit our teachers so we can offer driver's education. So I think I've made the proper contacts with people. The superintendent at Walla Walla, I'm going to be emailing, and then also working with state legislators and telling them what the responses that we're getting so we can continue to move that forward. So yeah, there was definitely some good stuff happening at that conference. That's all I have.
Anything, we got a couple minutes left. Anything else from the student perspective that you wanted to comment on?
Something that we attended a few sessions as well. One of the sessions that stood out to me the most was the mental health session. We all kind of discussed like what help we could get like from school, and a lot of like the students from other schools, they had like similar things that we have here, like just a counselor, and some of them had like on campus psychiatrists and stuff. But I think something that would be nice to take into consideration is like finding a few more resources, because I do know, like personally as a student, I do know a lot of other students don't necessarily feel comfortable or don't get as much help as they need from the resources we do have at school. Some other schools, they had like grants for mental health. I didn't get enough information to like talk more in depth about it, but I think that would be nice, something to take into consideration.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other Superintendent, do you have any other comments?
I found the conference very engaging, and I just want to compliment the board and our student reps for your engagement. I think that's one thing about the culture of this WSSDA conference is so many school districts send such strong representation, and the sessions are so well attended, and there's discussion afterwards. So I think a lot is forwarded in this. I do want to mention something about AI since it was brought up. I was in a session with Superintendent Reichdahl, and he made it clear to us as superintendents that Washington State will be the leader of AI integration in schools. That is his desire. We will be getting guidance about this in the next 6 weeks or so. We were spoken with by the state technology head, and I would say to you, our eyes were opened in a 1-hour session about the possibilities that I certainly hadn't thought or pondered going in. So if it is of interest to folks out there, it's coming. So I think the word embrace is an interesting one, because it's already here is what we were introduced to. It's not that it's coming. So embracing is probably a direction that we need to go.
Hesitantly exciting stuff on the horizon. I'm excited, I guess, maybe. Like to see what AI would do with our prototypical models. Say, give us some new numbers there perhaps, but we'll see. All right, with that, we are going to recess into executive session for approximately 30 minutes to consult with legal counsel, discuss litigation or potential litigation. And so we will need to adjourn to the back room, or not adjourn, recess. All right, so.